Hello everyone, Gabe the Builder here with another video. So Kenobi is coming out on Friday, and it's one of the most anticipated series, but for me, it's also one of the ones I'm most nervous for. I've spent about the past 5 months talking about it with my friend. We talk about it every 2 weeks, and that's always something we come back to, and I have a lot I'm nervous about, a lot I'm excited about, and just a lot they could mess up, and a lot this is going to affect. So, another low quality edit video, but I've got a set of bullet points, and I am going to ramble about them, however long it takes. So, the biggest part that this show needs to accomplish is balance everything. If they're gonna try to get Kenobi to have balanced force, but if they can't even make this show balanced with everything it needs to accomplish, then that's not good. So, first of all, we need to have Kenobi in a state where, at least to start, where he's broken, but not too broken where he's like Luke in The Last Jedi, because he needs to still, at just a little bit, care about Luke enough for him to go on this whole escapade, but he needs to have doubt in his mind. Now he also needs to at least try to do his force training with Qui-Gon. Now, in the comics, I think it took him a while to even be able to commune with Qui-Gon, which would add to the broken that he can't do it. He couldn't do it with Kenobi. He couldn't save Vader. He couldn't stop Sidious. He can't do it. So they need to at least show that he's trying and not just not doing it. He needs to also try to stay pure to his Jedi ideals. This goes with the broken part where he needs to still somewhat be a Jedi. The noble stuff in the trailer, like the Inquisitor, one of my favorite lines is that you can find a Jedi so because they leave behind a trail of niceness. So he's still gonna do it, but you need to balance that with the broken, balance it with the force training and Luke. I think you really need flashbacks, because you can help relate to Vader. Like, for example, we'll talk about this more later, but Satine, Obi-Wan also had a love life, but he didn't go down the dark side. You need to use these where you're gonna help both build Kenobi and Vader and give them more interest and help connect it to the story and help make this story better and the previous ones. But they also need to keep a focused narrative on the now, on this present story, unlike Book of Boba Fett, because if you're just gonna focus all your time on flashbacks and give a half-baked now, then you should just make the flashbacks the show. It shouldn't be now where it is. It should be back where the flashbacks take place, because you don't care about the present and you don't have a good story to tell here, so tell the old good story. He also needs to be evading Inquisitors and bounty hunters because he's on the run. They have wanted posters. Everyone and their mother is trying to find Kenobi because he's got a high bounty on his head, and Vader really wants to find him. And speaking of Vader, they're gonna have a duel. I wish they didn't have a duel, but now that they're gonna have a duel, they need to make it meaningful story-wise. There needs to be a good reason that makes sense with the story. It needs to end out good, needs to have a good outcome, one that doesn't affect the rest of the story too much, because if it leaves, like, A New Hope feeling weird now, that's not good. It needs to connect to the story, it needs to have a purpose. Why do they meet? Why don't they meet again? If they do meet again, why are you meeting 2 times between this and A New Hope? You shouldn't be meeting that many times. Why? That's this show. If they're gonna take a big scale, you're gonna need to answer all these questions. Now, you also need to not make this a cameo fest just for the sake of cameos and, oh look, that's the guy with the long neck from the Jedi Council. Ooh, I don't want 2 episodes of a young Din Djarin training to be a Mandalorian so he can fail to try to capture Kenobi. We don't need that. Please, Please don't make this like the Book of Boba Fett, where you have all these cameos, but then they don't have a purpose on the show. You need to explain why the Inquisitors and Vader stopped looking for Kenobi after the show, because it's Vader. He thinks that this Kenobi, he's ruined his life. He thinks that he killed his wife, and he turned her against him, and that he shouldn't have listened, and he held him back. He thinks all these bad things happened because of Kenobi. So, since he's a Darksider also, he's not gonna stop. They believe in vengeance and revenge, so he's not gonna stop. And just the fact that he's a Jedi, the Inquisitors aren't gonna stop. So you need to have a very good reason why they stop, which is probably gonna be he fakes his death. Another very important thing, they can't let the show be too big, but they also can't let it be too small. They can't let it be too big because Kenobi's trying to stay on the low. He doesn't want this to be big because that puts Luke in danger. But for the sake of it being a show, it shouldn't just be Old Man Meditate in the Desert episode 5, because that's not a story. That's Old Man Sits in the Desert for 6 hours. I don't have this, but now that I mention it, they're gonna need to really try with the pacing. They have 6 episodes, at the longest an hour each, probably closer to 40 minutes, seeing what they're doing with Star Wars. But assuming it's its longest, you have 6 hours to tell the story, and that's just gonna be very hard to balance, where you need to have this sense of urgency when the Inquisitors are chasing him, but when it's just him on Tatooine, it needs to feel like slow, painful 10 years. What I was saying earlier, they need to use Satine and other events in Obi-Wan's life to show the similarity between him and Vader, because Vader's not the only Jedi who's ever had problems now. Things didn't go his way. He was told he was going to be the chosen one. He grew up. He became a Jedi while he was older. He did have things halting him, and of course Sidious manipulating him. But all the Jedis go through problems. We can't show that, no, Vader is the only victim. He's a bad guy, and you can't also just humanize him. Now, this is supposed to be another thing that's very important. This needs to be a continuation of the prequel Vader and the original trilogy Vader, but they can't humanize him. Thanks to the Clone Wars, he feels a lot more humanized, and you gotta make them feel, you need to make them feel different. Make it feel like why Obi-Wan was like, no, Vader killed your fathers, because they are two entirely different people. But you still gotta make them feel like the same person, while one's just like this cruel, evil, heartless machine monster. We need them to feel the same, but a different entity, if I'm saying that right. Now, another one of the most important things, you cannot undermine the past stories, whether it's the old TV shows, the prequels, original trilogy. You gotta continue it in meaningful ways. You can't just make retcon after retcon, or character decisions that just don't fit with the story. Like, for example, Luke in The Last Jedi. It needs to fit with the story. It shouldn't be for money. It shouldn't be because of bad writing. It needs to be a continuation. And since this, either way, it is continuing past stories. So if they get it right or they get it wrong, it's still gonna feel like it's connected. So if it's bad, it weighs down the rest of Star Wars, because it's Kenobi, it's Vader. These are some of the essentials of Star Wars. So if you ruin this, you're gonna bring those characters down. These beloved characters that people have been loving for, what is it, 23 years now? At least for the prequels, even more besides that. They're some of the biggest characters in all of the movies, so this show has to balance all of it. And my last thing I have written here is you need to have Kenobi feel responsible for his actions. This kind of goes with him being broken also, but like, he kind of caused this. He knew that about Padme, as we saw in the Clone Wars. He's seen these little hints of it, like in the Clone Wars, for example, that episode where him and Satine were him and Anakin were taking Satine to Coruscant, and there was the person, both him and Satine, they were both supposed to not kill it because they're codes. He just walks in and stabs him in the chest. That's a bit of dark side. If you hear the Imperial March in the Clone Wars, that's a dark side scene, and there are a lot of them. In that part on the Mortis arc where he's like, "Oh, I've done such terrible things in the future, Obi-Wan." He doesn't think anything of that later. He has a lot of. He's responsible for a lot of this. Anakin needed a father figure, and he got Kenobi as a brother. He needed Qui-Gon because he can't just deal. He's not a normal Jedi. His conditions, which I talked about earlier, won't let him be a normal Jedi. He's like Qui-Gon. He's different. And he needed someone who listened to that and just tell him, do this, do that, follow the Jedi code. It is, in some parts, Kenobi's fault, and he needs to feel guilt for that. He needs to self-reflect, and he needs to try to learn how to be a better master for Luke, because Luke is the hope. He is one of the last hopes of the galaxy, and if Kenobi fails that, he's really failed. And I also think about this now. His interactions with the Lars needs to be meaningful, where he stays his distance, but he's really trying to get in there. Maybe when we hear about the Inquisitors coming, he's really starting to push. I don't know. There's just a lot this show needs to balance. If they can get all of this and more stuff that I probably just haven't even thought about, that's a lot of work. And if they don't do this right, it's really gonna bring down the rest of the story. And if you can't do this right, then just don't do it, because these are beloved characters. You saw what happened when they messed with beloved characters in the sequels. People did not like it. And this is Kenobi and Vader. These, in some ways, not Luke, but it's more important than if you mess up Princess Leia, Han Solo, because these are the core of Star Wars for some people. After the Clone Wars, these are a lot of people's favorite characters. Yeah, Luke, but a lot of people like these more than Luke. So if they bring them down, it's really going to be bad for them, and I'm not sure how Star Wars is going to be able to continue to get people to watch if they're messing up Kenobi and Luke. So I'm crossing my fingers that this turns out good, but that's a lot of expectations. I know others probably have higher expectations, lower expectations. But I guess I'll talk about it at the end of the show, if not in the middle, if I have a theory or just something I really need to comment on. So thank you all for watching. What do you think about this? Anything else needs balance? Let me know in the comments down below. Please don't fail this, Disney. Please don't. And on a preoccupied but hopeful note, see you in the next video. Goodbye.